Love, money, and murder, one of the giants of the American literature, uses all those topics in a novel during the Roaring '20s.
88 years later, Hollywood once again picks the story to make a new film. The story is The Great Gatsby, and the author has connections to the mountains. F. Scott Fitzgerald spent several years here.
News 13's Cheryl Barber joins us with details on the impact it had on his life and his work.
F. Scott Fitzgerald spent parts of 1935 and 1936 in Asheville and towns nearby. But the man who wrote The Great Gatsby came here to get a fresh start after a decade of failures.
What a marvelous age we live in.
He was probably the best of the best when he was sober.
His first novel was an instant bestseller.
He really captured not just the spirit of the times in the mid-1920s.
His short stories earned him huge amounts of money and fame.
But, as often happens in our pursuit of the American dream, it doesn't quite work out that way.
Dr. Brian Railsback says The Great Gatsby was the work Fitzgerald cherished the most. But the book had disappointing sales. 10 years later, deeply in debt, suffering from tuberculosis, he came to the mountains, and an inn he thought would save him.
He came here because he was in real trouble, because he knew it as a very fashionable, very important hotel, and that's exactly the kind of place he wanted to be.
Dr. Railsback sits at a desk near the rooms Fitzgerald rented at the Grove Park Inn. They're a popular attraction here, offering a glimpse of a writer's retreat.
This was the place to come to restore his health. So his plan was to find discipline, slow down on drinking, get away from it all, and it's not surprising he chose the Grove Park Inn.
During his stay in 1935, Fitzgerald was nearly broke. His wife Zelda needed hospitalization for bipolar disorder and was hospitalized here in Asheville.
He was really here to try to find some discipline and get to work. Unfortunately, he didn't quite accomplish that. One thing he tried was the beer cure, where he would drink beer in place of gin, but the beer bottles became 20 and some say as many as 30 a day, so that plan didn't pan out.
It didn't pan out because he wasn't selling stories. As he ran out of money at the Grove Park, he was forced to move.
He would go to what he called dollar hotels. He didn't like them very much. He would stay in Oak Hall and Tryon. Skyland Hotel was another one in Hendersonville, but he was often miserable in those places.
His peak of fame came early, writing about the filthy rich in the 20s. But his readers, suffering at the depth of the Depression in the 30s, turned their backs on him. Still, he had a following in Asheville.
He was very charismatic. You know, he was the sort of man that women loved to take care of, and so he was never without his following. He would have his groupies. He was a bit of a celebrity, but yet at the same time, they also recognized that he was a celebrity in decline.
But that decline couldn't take away the power of Fitzgerald's words. The Great Gatsby is often included in the lists of America's best novels.
He's looking at that world of wealth and splendor, but he's on the outside. And on the one time, he's sort of enjoying his place in it, but in another way, he's also judging it and realizing that it's fairly shallow and empty.
Demand for this novel was obviously boosted by the release of the new film. Amazon listed it their #1 bestseller this week, and it spent the last 2 years in the top 100. In September, the Grove Park Inn offers special tours and lectures on Fitzgerald.